Welcome back to Dungeons and Dyslexia. Today I'm reviewing the latest expansion by Free League for the One Ring, which is called The Realms of Three Kings. So this book is, I think, it's just been released by Free League now. Well, obviously my copies come direct from Free League. You can pick up the PDF, and the PDF has been available for a while now. But here I have my physical copy of possibly one of the most stunning books that I now own. So I've got my top-down camera that I still haven't perfected yet. I haven't quite worked out to get the pages to work, but I just want to show this really off. So it's got this wonderful cover that I'm guessing this is Elrond here, and it's in the back cover. It sort of, the book's set out into 3 different chapters, but realistically, this is just the elves. Well, it's an elves player guide and an elves Loremasters guide, and then a load of locations for sort of, well, if you're going to play the elves or interacting with the elves, and places that sort of interact back with the elves. But it's got this wonderful sort of material feel to it, which say Free League always managed to completely and utterly knock it out the park when it comes to the quality of their products. And this is what I really like about it. So they do this with all the One Rings. So you've got the map here of the area where it's basically covering 3 different areas of the elves. So you've got Linden here, Rivendell over here, and then Lorien, Lothlorien here. And on the back you've got the sort of hex crawl for the sort of Fellowship travelling rules that kick into the game. But this one image here is absolutely amazing. It looks good in the PDF, but on page it's amazing. So you've got here, this looks almost like it could be direct from the Peter Jackson movies. So I'm guessing you've got these look like hobbits here. It's just watching the elves as they are sort of dancing, and whether they're leaving or whether they're just observing them in the sort of moonlight here. But right, okay. So from ordering the book yourself, I think it's still only direct Free League where it is. I had a look on TTRPG. The book isn't on there yet. I don't think Free League tend to do TTRPG books. So if you want this, other stores will have it, or you can pick it up direct from the One Ring. So right, before I get into my review and my final thoughts, what I'll do, as always, is we'll go through the PDF together. We'll have a look so you can see what's included in the book and whether this is for you. Okay, so front cover. So we've seen the front cover, but the PDF copy just doesn't seem to do it justice, I don't think. As discussed, we have got this map here. Right, so we've got the lead writer here, Gabrielle Quagila, I think that is, and then additional writers and an awful lot of people that I'm going to really struggle to pronounce. So thank you for bringing this book, and but I'll just skip past this. But thank you. Book itself comes in about 140 pages, so it's similar size to some of the other source books that they've got out for the One Ring. I'm assuming I don't own it, and I won't be getting the 5th edition version of this. I do like the sort of D12, D10, depending on how you class it, sort of system from the original 2nd edition here. The book itself, so we've got 3 different chapters and then the appendix at the back of the book. First chapter covers the history of the elves, and it just details specifically the locations in Linden, Rivendell.
Welcome to Rivendell, Frodo Baggins.
And Lothlorien, and it is hyperlinked as well in parts, which is good to see. The second chapter is this is the Loremasters chapter, and we've got 4 not adventures but adventure ideas for sort of dangerous protagonists that are going to be able to take on the sort of intelligence and the long lengthness of the elves, because obviously elves plan things over millennia, where humans are sort of 60 to 70, maybe 80 years at most. So the protagonists are deliberately written to be sort of painful for elves. And then the landmark section is 12 areas where either the elves will be living or in the place of like the Valley of the Dwarfs, so places that are again not sort of the sort of place that the elves should be going, really. So we'll come on to that when we get to it. And then finally we've got the appendix at the back, which is the sort of players section here, which will give you player characters for making the high elves, the elves of Lorien, and then the elf lords in solo player. So if you've ever played this using the Strider mode, which that I think is available on TTRPG, I think that's the only place you can get hold of the Strider mode, which is a solo way of playing this. So you can then play an elf as in the solo mode. As I go through the book, there will be some spoilers, not deliberately, because just as we go through the pages, there will be things that you know, if you're a player, you might not want to know, and as Games Master, you might want to discover for yourself. So I will do this as more of an overview, but I will be sort of pointing out parts of the book. So you have been warned in the nicest of ways. Since I was saying about this, this looks nice on PDF, but on paper it just looks absolutely stunning. The opening the book covers the sort of the longevity of the elves from the first, second, and through to the third age, even detailing the sort of downfall of Numenor. What I really like about this is it really explains, because when you do a book from a human point of view, and you know, like a human player's guide in Lord of the Rings, as I said to start with, you're sort of planning out for sort of 20, 30, 40 years. These are planning out, and people have been around throughout the ages, and I say it's just done in a really, really clever way. We're then into the section about staying in the Elflands and discovering the Elflands itself, and Peter Jackson covered it quite well in the films, where you know, it's quite hard to find Rivendell and Lothlorien. You're just not going to stumble across it. You're only going to get there if the elves want you to find it. And they are very magical places. Even though this is a low magic world that Tolkien created, this book it's got a little bit more of a magic to it because the elves are a lot more magical and ethereal. And so what it does is we've got some sort of proper rules here for when the players are in the Elflands, assuming they find it, that is. So timelessness. So time has no meaning there. So you don't know how long the players are going to be there for. They might think they've been there a week. They could have been there for several months or years. They're also going to be able to heal, and this is one of the few places where you can actually heal your shadow scars. So once the players discover they can go here and heal some nastiness, then they might want to be coming back. First area that we're going to look at in the book is Lindon, okay? And this is really these sort of Grey Havens, Círdan the Shipwright, that sort of area. So some of these things you'll have heard of and seen in the Peter Jackson book. So all three rings that are given to the Elf Lords are given here. So we're starting off with Narya, which is the ring that Gandalf the Grey is wearing during the Third Age, okay? But as we're getting to Lindon, we're going to see so Forlinden and Harlinden. Each of the towns listed, so there'll be a little bit of detail in there. Some of them are a little more like Hurlond here. And there is a key which details the town in a little bit more detail. Each of the towns as well, so you've got the three sort of larger towns that are covered in this book, will have some sort of exploring mechanic for the players. It's unique to the players when they're there, as well as some of the key NPCs that live in these areas. And some of this then will also link back into the adventures that are coming up, as well as the key locations towards the back of the book. So we've got, is it Círdan or Círdan? I always think it's Círdan, but my English thinks I should pronounce it Círdan. I don't know why. He's one of the only elves with a beard, is he the only elf with a beard? I can't quite remember. And it's broken down. We've then got the 9 houses as well as Mithlond, which I say that there's so much detail in here that if you've ever played an elf in the One Ring, because one thing this book does really well is will make you probably realise you've been playing elves, or as a Loremaster playing elves completely wrong, because they are a lot more sort of removed from the rest of Middle Earth, and they really don't care about anything that's going on, and it does cover this in quite a bit of detail. Now, as we get into Rivendell, so we'll see Vilja up here, which is the ring that Elrond is wearing. And it just covers a little bit more detail. So this is already in one of the expansion books, which it kind of... I was a little bit disappointed that this was actually reprinted for this book. I think it's in the Loremasters GM guide. No, it's not. It's in the screen. I think it's in the Games Masters, the Loremasters screen pack. I think Free League were into a hiding, regardless of what they did, because, you know, had they not included it, I think people would have said that it needed to be included in the book. But by including it, people like me that have already got this, they're like, oh, read this, you know, I'm not learning anything new. But it's the Elf Guide, and, you know, not having Rivendell in there would have been tragedy, really. And like the markets, we've got this many meetings in Rivendell, and some random things that can happen and interactions with different people. And then we've got, you know, details here of Elrond and Arwen and other people that there, as well as his sons. That were then new area here.
Welcome, Frodo of the Shire.
Because there's no actual adventure in the book. It's just sort of locations, NPCs that are there the players can interact with. And then you've got the final ring here for the owls, Naya, which is Galadriel's ring. But yeah, but I'm used to this. I like these sort of things, because what I don't want from a book is exact, like a campaign, linear adventures. What I like is the way this, because it's done in the same way that all the Warhammer books are done. Warhammer Fantasy role playing. They will basically give a location guide, and then they'll have hints and tips and sidebars for this is an adventure idea, this is a hook of who you can go and see, and this is the sort of interaction that the players will have when they'll get there. So it's not just a, you know, here's Lothlorien. There's a lot in here about adventure hooks, ideas, NPCs that they can meet and interact with. And they'll have, like there's histories here about Lady Galadriel and Lord Celeborn. But also it will then detail things that they want done or achieve, or links them to certain areas. This does, though, as well, allow Celeborn and Galadriel to become patrons, because that's one of the big things that the One Ring is. I really like about it is having the sort of, I nearly said historical figures, but the sort of the big antagonists, the sort of larger protagonists from the books, that then can guide the Fellowship and give them hints and tips and sort of missions to go on. Second chapter coming up is, so this is the Loremasters section, and all four of these parts are done in a way. So we've got Perils of the Last Road, Memories of the Ancient Wounds, Old Hatred May Still Breed War, and then Other Shadows. So this is just all an area of adventure ideas, then mixed in with a really, I would say, very powerful enemy for the player characters. So I don't want to focus on much of this, because I think it's more important that, especially if you're a player, if you're listening to this, that you don't find out things. But some of these people in here are very powerful. They've got really good motivations, and it's incredibly well written. And you've also got the history going back sometimes over hundreds of years that sort of mixes their history in with the events of the Second and the Third Age in the actual books. So it should all, as you're going through it, feel very familiar to you as the Loremaster. This one is absolutely ace. I don't know whether these appear in the books at all or not, but these are the rivals to the giant eagles. These are sort of giant size birds of prey, and one of them is actually named here. Is it Dagur? I think it's pronounced, which is wonderful. It is just a wonderful enemy to throw at the players. Well, the fellowship, we should say. So it's one of the sections here. So this is just a sort of hint and tip section for this one. So in this section, some characters are given full stats because it's likely that the player heroes may find themselves at odds with one or both of the factions that the players were going to sort of interact with. And this is quite a good... I like it when players need to make choices and to pick sides, and then it will just make the adventure different depending on which way they go. And then finally closing down, we've got some other shadows, which are just 3 sort of smaller, again, adventure ideas. It's all... I'll leave that to my summary. Landmarks, we've got 12 locations, some of which are from the books, some of which are completely made up. And each of them will have a background to the landmark, the location itself. And then you've got a map of the location with the key for all the different rooms, and each of the locations as well will have a rumour, which will be a reason for the players to go there. And then they might actually have some actual, some real lore that some people may know or may not know to actually get there. So we've got this Palace of the Seabirds, which is one of my favourite ones, which was just off the coast that the players can go and discover. Also, there will be some sort of interaction there, which will just give the players you've got the reason to go, which was normally going to be the rumour of some sort. But when they get there, there will be sort of schemes and troubles. So, for example, this section here, which is just then the interactions, the bad things that can happen to the players. And this will just go through, and some of the locations seem quite small. So, for example, the Palace of the Seabirds, and then others are grand, like we've got here, which is the Valley of the Dwarfs, which is huge. Palace of the Seabirds will probably take maybe an evening to 2 evenings to get there. To complete with the players, if you're going to be doing the Valley of the Dwarfs, which I would recommend, because dwarfs and elves, they don't exactly get on, and they're close enough to be sort of disruptive to the elven ideas. This is quite a big area, so it's going to take quite a long time for the players to go through and interact. We've got this really weird vineyard here, which is, I think it's very interesting. It's going to be horrific to get there because you've got to do this waterfall, get past the waterfall and go across this horrible, scary looking ridge to actually get there. But yeah, the vineyard is just stuck in the on the side of a mountain. We've got the Wailing Hole, Winter's Horn as well. It's again slightly larger encounter, but they all feel very different because, you've got vineyards. The last one there was a sort of frosted area to go in. And then again, some ruins here for the players to interact with. The Singing Stone. The only thing is, I feel bad when I was reading this, as I wasn't sure which ones were the real locations and which ones they'd made up. And I think that probably is testament to just how good the writing of this book is, because it didn't stand out to me. And I'm not a Tolkien scholar, and I don't mean it like I should automatically notice, but everything that I looked at really felt like it fit in the world, fit in the book, and should have been in the book. And then we got the appendix here. So we've got the High Elves of Rivendell, which again were in the Loremasters screen. So this isn't new. The Elves of Lorien I think this is new. And then this is definitely new. Elf Lords in solo play. And if you've never played the Strider rules, and I know I mentioned it earlier, it's a really good way as a games master to discover and understand what's going on in the world. But also it means that you can play this game more often, because sometimes trying to get a group together can be difficult. And if you're unlucky with dice rolls, you might want to start by playing the Elf Lord, because these, on the face of it, seem a lot more powerful. I haven't play tested it yet, but they seem a lot more powerful than the standard Strider rules. Okay, so that's the book. So it's not massive. It's 140 pages. What do I think of it? Right. So I'm going to start with the worst part, which obviously is the repetition of Rivendell and the elves in the back of the book that you can play. I'd say I'm disappointed they're in here because I don't like buying something twice. It does feel a little bit annoying, but I do think that it's not necessarily that easily available anywhere. But also, this is the Elves Guide, and if the Elves Guide didn't include probably the most famous elven location and some of the, one of the most famous, well, especially the most famous half elf in Tolkien's writing, I think there would have been hell to pay. So I'm glad it's in there, but it does annoy me. But the book is absolutely fantastic. So it's made me realise that I've ran elves and elven encounters completely wrong. Which I think a lot of people, maybe better games masters than me, or people that understand the lore better than me, may not have made the same mistake. But I didn't make the elves sort of mysterious, magical. Everything that I did with them, I kind of ran them from the mind of a human, and as in me, and how like a human would see things without that whole planning, far beyond the caring of human plans. But also, it's nice to have those, just those rules down for, when they do find them, which is incredibly difficult. Talking about the motivations of the elves and just the magic and the healing, your players are going to want to come back to these locations. But depending on how they speak to the elves, how they interact with them, will they even find it in the first place, or even be able to come back to it? And depending on the reputation that they create in the world, I do like the idea of let them find it, go off. Let's say they do some sort of bad things, because the other thing this book covers, and the starter set did this really well, is it does give even the animals and so the fauna and flora. Tolkien did this in the books really well. Everything sort of has a life and a meaning, and there's lots of this in the areas of the elves that it feels like the players are being watched all the time, and so the elves just know what's going on. The three big sort of campaign adventure ideas, really good antagonists. Obviously they're going to make decisions with one of them with different factions. That bird of prey sort of adventure encounter is good. So it's not an adventure, they are encounters. Now, if you're picking this up thinking, I've got my friends are coming around for the evening, I'll just pick this up, we'll have an adventure, with the birds of prey, it's not going to happen. You're going to need, to do the book justice, and even your spending of money, you're going to need to sort of spend time with the book, understanding not only the section that you want to sort of cover, but the linked locations to some of the other stuff as well, just to get the best out of it. It's something that I think you should do. But yeah, if you want this as as an adventure guidebook, you're going to need to do a bit more work. But I don't mind that. It's not this is not a campaign book. It's in essence, I would say it's the elf guide, player's guide, Loremaster's guide for, playing elves, if that makes sense, and how to sort of games master the elves effectively. I really like it. And the fact this book is utterly stunning and wonderful to just to hold in your hand, it just feels really nice. Love it. I am collecting all of the One Ring books, purely because I want them. I don't get to play it that often, so I am sort of playing it from a lore point of view. But also, it's just reminded me again about the Strider rules, because I when I first got the players' handbooks, when you first get the starter sets and you're sort of working through, you can then sort of go, okay, well, let's play Moria. Let's just pick up another book, go to Moria, use the Strider mode, go down in there, and that I probably need to do cover the Moria book as well, because that is huge. I did not realise just how vast Moria. Not the book itself isn't huge, but the Moria itself is absolutely. It's just a massive dungeon crawl book, which is really interesting. But yeah, Realms of the Three Kings, Realms of the Three Rings. So Realms of the Three Rings, do I recommend it? You know I do, because I've got the camera on. These are just becoming quite predictable now, aren't they? And I do have a hard time if I did, when I dislike something, to go on and talk about it and then let everyone know that I really dislike something that people have spent hours of their lives working on. At this moment in time, I'm just not, I don't put it on camera. But let me know in the comments below if you've enjoyed this, if this is a book that you want to add to your collection. What's the best part of it? Which is the best antagonist? Which one do you really want to where do you want to start with the players? And as ever, if you know what to do, like, share, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.